Game, let's go. There we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Our first item on the agenda is disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we need a mover and a seconder for approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover? Member Smink and Councillor Korstanji. Moved by Member Smink, seconded by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that the January 29th Public Works Committee meeting agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Next, we have receipt of previous minutes. Can I get a mover and seconder to receive the previous minutes, please? Councillor Howe. Member Rady. Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Member Rady. Resolved that the Public Works Committee minutes of November 25th, 2024 be received. Any questions or comments on those? All in favor? That's carried. All right, we have no delegations or consent reports, so we can move to item 8 on the agenda, which is discussion reports. The first discussion report is the 2024 Roads QMS Management Review. Can I get a mover and seconder to get it on the floor for discussion? Councillor Davoli and Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Davoli, seconded by Councillor Howe. Resolved that report DPW 2501 Roads QMS Management Review dated January, Brandon, is that you or is there somebody else that's, okay, Ben? Sorry, Ben. If I wasn't following a script, I would have come to you, but the script that I was given does not mention the staff member, so please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So the report brought forward to the committee this evening is regarding our annual RQMS management review, which is really an opportunity for the management staff to get in a room and talk about the programs, inputs, into the RQMS from an annual basis. These include internal audits, maintenance programs, training, stakeholder inputs, any CVOR violations, etc. Attached to the report are two appendices, one being the minutes of the meeting held by staff back in December, as well as the summary of inputs into the RQMS management review. I would say at a very high level, there was 3 best practices that were pulled out of that management review, which staff are trying to focus on through 2025. The first being looking at an audit of our CVOR, so doing a mock CVOR facility audit in 2025. The last one was completed in 2015, so it would be an opportunity for us to look at what best practice are or areas for improvement moving forward. The second we're going to be looking at is the training program for our operations transportation services staff, and just continue to improve upon and build out those competencies of those staff so they can continue to do the jobs that we're asking them to do every year. And the last one that we looked at was our levels of service for items such as oil and grip separators and rear yard catch basins. So as we're rolling out the operations and maintenance manual for our CLI for stormwater, we're going to be talking more about what these levels of service and what these annual maintenance programs look like. Happy to receive any questions or comments on the report.
Any questions for Ben on the Councillor Davoli, then Councillor Howe?
Thank you. A question to Ben. We've been on the committee for a few years now, and these reports are coming to us. Can you just explain or share with us what is done with the items that would have been noted in the last report? What's your process as to how you handle the items that were noted for further follow-up, let's say in the last report that ever came to us? And what do you do with them after and before you do the next report?
Through you, Chair. The RQMS follows the same structure layout as the DW QMS. So we have a preventative correction action log, similar to what we maintain for the DW QMS, which when we have those suggestions or those action items, we log those and assign them to the appropriate individual, and then assign due dates or follow-ups. So preceding the meeting, those action items will be assigned to those individuals. Subsequent meetings or engagements with other stakeholders will take place. For instance, the CVOR facility audit is something with budget approval going through for 2025. We've looked to engage a third party for quotation to look at, one, the cost of performing the audit for 2025 and the schedule. So that would be an example of how we handle one of the action items that come out of the management review.
So I don't have in front of me the last one. Is there some way that you can bring it forward, or are you familiar with it, or is the director even familiar with it to remind us of what was on the last one and then what follow-up was done? Or is this report the follow-up to the last one?
Through you, Chair. Within the appendix, I believe it's appendix number A, item I, there's a summary of the action items from the previous year, which can be referenced. And if there's any further details, happy to speak to any.
Councilor
That's what I was looking for. Some direction, thank you. I did read the appendix, but I obviously missed it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's on page 7 there, and all the items are marked complete, so we're going to take your word for it. Councilor Howe, you had questions?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Ben, I thought the MTO would stop in on a fairly frequent basis, but we refer to this as the mock inspection that you want to do, and I get it, but do we not get visits anymore from MTO?
Through you, Chair, I hope we don't get any visits from the MTO. They usually show up when they're looking for these audits to find out and make sure that you're going to be in compliance. We hope that we don't see an MTO officer come in our front door to perform an audit because of an incident or otherwise. We hope that we're doing enough within our fleet management program, within our transportation services program to maintain that compliance and keep them maybe out of the front door. But the purpose of the mock audit is really making sure that all our I's and T's are dotted, not having gone through a formal audit. Our last audit period was a mock audit. So just to make sure that we're staying on top of what best practices as well as what compliance items are, so that if we were to receive the audit, then we are prepared.
Brandon?
Yeah, sorry, just to add to that, we also do, it's very similar to what we do in our roads quality management system overall and our drinking water quality management system overall. Actually hire a third-party auditor to come in and go through all of our records, go through our documentation, make sure that we're essentially doing what we're saying that we're going to do. So idea here is we're going to branch out or extend that into the commercial vehicle operating regulation or something like that, CVOR. I know there's well, I don't know what the R is, but anyways. But yeah, to try to do a mock audit to help prepare us to make sure that we're doing what we're saying that we're doing and following all the requirements.
Member Spink?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the information about the CVOR going ahead. That was one of my questions. I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper on Councillor Davoli's question. I see in Appendix I, action taken, as opposed to, maybe I'm just looking for a specific that can give me a little bit more context. I feel like we're a year behind on this. So your latest third-party audit took place in December of 2024. We don't have the results of that yet. What you're reporting on now is actually from November of 2023. So, for example, maybe you could just tell us one of the 6 non-conformances, because that would be my biggest concern, and what we might have done so that those specific items won't be on the report that you're about to receive. Thank you.
Sure, through you, Chair. I believe one of the non-conformances might have been relating to posting of our our policies within public spaces would be a good example. So the DWQMS and RQMS are to be posted in a public space so that any member of the public has visibility. Previously, they were posted in council chambers on placards. The action item there was to work with our IT department to actually get them cycling through the screens that are now at the front desk. So that would be one of the items that we were in non-conformance for, that we took action with the internal parties to maybe take a more modern approach to getting them visibly available in Town Hall.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ben. I have a resolution resolved, moved by Councillor Davoli, seconded by Councillor Howe. Resolved that report DPW 2501, Roads QMS Management Review dated January 29th, 2025, be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. The last discussion report is the encroachment agreement for 2 5th Street. Can I get a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, please? Councillor Cristangi, seconded by Councillor Davoli. Is it, who's it, Spencer? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is encroachment agreement for 2 5th Street in Grimsby Beach. I guess it's becoming more common through Grimsby Beach. Obviously, most of the homes were built kind of ignoring property lines, so we do have a lot of existing encroachments onto town property and adjacent properties. So this is just really recognizing an existing encroachment. Part of the requirements through the building code is they won't issue a permit unless they have that encroachment agreement in place. So it's really just cleaning it up, recognizing it so that they're able to do maintenance and some renovation to the house. It's not extending or enlarging the encroachment. It's just recognizing that existing encroachment for this one. It backs on or fronts onto the lake, so there's a small encroachment. There is a draft reference plan included within the report that kind of shows you the limits of the encroachment. So really just looking for the recognizing that encroachment and formalizing it through an encroachment agreement. And then again, there's no financial cost to the town. Everything is paid for through or by the owner of the property. Open to any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Davoli?
Thank you, Chair. My question to you, Spencer. So in this particular instance, you said the property encroaches, I'm going to say, to the north, to where the lake is. So can you just kind of formulate for me, does the town have any liability if the homeowner is out doing some trimming, they're now working around their building to the north of it or whatever, and I don't know how close they are to the bluff that goes down to the lake, but I'm going to make up an example and say that they're out there, they've got a ladder, they fall off the ladder, they slide down, they bump their head on a few rocks on the way down. The fact that we gave them the right to encroach on technically town property, does that make us liable in any way for anything that might happen to them, or is this encroachment agreement really hold us blameless?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair. So the encroachment agreement, and it's a draft reference plan, so it actually shows it extending beyond the dwelling. We wouldn't allow for that. It would be right to the foundation. So if they were on the rest of the land, it would just be public property as if any other resident was on there. And if something was to happen for any work to the dwelling or anything like that, there is within the encroachment agreement that will actually be formalized and signed. There's liability insurance that the owner must maintain with the town being additionally insured, so that if there is even like snow falling off that encroachment and happen to hit an innocent bystander, the town wouldn't be responsible for that. So all that does get covered within the details of the encroachment agreement. It is vetted through legal as well to ensure that.
Thank you, Spencer. Any other questions for Mr. Pierce? Councillor Howe? Oh, no, we're good. Okay. Seeing no further questions, I have a motion moved by Councilor Cristangi, seconded by Councilor DeVoli. Resolved that report DPW 2502, encroachment agreement for 2 Fifth Street in Grimsby Beach dated January 29th, 2025 be received. And that the Public Works staff be authorized to establish an encroachment agreement with the property owner of 2 Fifth Street to recognize the existing encroachments as follows: a portion of the house foundation and a portion of the dwelling. 2, that all associated costs for the encroachment agreement be paid for by the property owner. And 3, that the mayor and town clerk be authorized to execute the encroachment agreement. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Is there any other business pertaining to the committee? I've got Member Smink and then Councillor Howe. Member Smink.
Through you, Mr. Chair. At the beginning of this month, there was at least one emergency water main break in town. I presume because of the swings in the temperature outside. I just wanted to know if there was any ongoing problems, if there was any concern about this occurring again because of the age and the overall state of the water mains in town. Thank you.
Are we going to give this to Mr. Asa Savage? Because he's graced us with his presence today. So, Mikey O, what do you have to tell us about the water mains? And welcome to our humble Public Works Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a long time since I've been here. Just in terms of water main breaks, since Boxing Day, we've had 4 in town, 2 on Main Street West, both on 1953 cast iron, which is scheduled for replacement. The original one on Boxing Day was 1970 cast iron on Winston Road. We've had other breaks in that area. It is also in our 25-year cast iron replacement program, I believe in 2027. The 4th on Kelson Avenue at Kelson and Main Street West was another one. It was a PVC water main, just probably due to poor installation back in 1983. It was sitting on top of a storm sewer, and basically the pipe over years shrunk down, and it eventually broke. It was going across to the storage place on the southeast corner. It was probably for future expansion. It was installed, but it was never used. So we just capped it at Main Street on the other side of the intersection and called it a day there. Other than that, 2 of them I called as AWQIs, as adverse water quality indicators for the MECP due to unexpected loss of water distribution pressure. And at that time, I didn't know the extremities of how far the breaks went and the number of calls for no water. Both of them, the Kelson Avenue one and Winston Road one, both approximately had 80 to 100 people out of water for a duration of probably 10 to 12 hours. They were a bit bigger repairs. Winston Road was approximately 14 feet deep, which made it a little more challenging for repair. All 4 repairs were completed by a contractor, different contractors that I have on speed dial right now. And that's about it. I'm open to any questions or any other.
Member Smink, does that answer your question?
It explains what actually happened very well, and I appreciate that. I guess my concern is with what we know about the asset that we have in place all through the town. Should we be expecting more water main breaks?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could predict that, we should all be buying 6489 tickets. We could probably expect more in different places. It is aging cast iron water main. That's why we have our 25-year strategy, which we're down to 10 years left in it. So it's something that started a long time ago, and it's been proving very well along the way.
Brandon, go ahead.
If I can just add, as Michael said, we do have a cast iron replacement strategy. We're down to our final 10 years. So essentially, The cast iron is the oldest water main that we have on the system. It's more likely to break due to corrosion, and over time it gets more brittle. So that's, as over the years, we've been chipping away $2 million a year at a time kind of thing, replacing the water main, and we're down to our last, what do you call it, 10 years worth of water main replacement. So just to add kind of a flavor, anytime someone uses the word break, Mike kind of flips out a little bit, and there's a lot of knocking on wood. So, and I think we had a meeting with a consultant. We were talking about asset management, and I think that word came up about 4 or 5 times. So we're kind of blaming these incidents on him, but no. But seriously, no. And I know Michael didn't talk about it, but maybe downplaying a little bit. But was a very challenging time for the guys. I think all of the breaks occurred back to back overnights, so it was. I know we had contractors helping out, but Mike and the guys have to also, as licensed water operators, have to oversee the operations to make sure the repairs are being done properly. So just to give an opportunity to say thank you to Michael and the team for their hard efforts, and their teams taking away time from their families so they could keep the water going, and it's appreciated to Mike and the team. So I was going to say something else, but I forgot my thought, so maybe it'll come back to me.
Okay. Councillor Howe?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, a couple of items. The budget meeting on Monday night, and just a kind of a confirmation, asked that Public Works have engaged the region into an explanation as to what happened and why on that calibration screw up. I think we're about $3 million or something dollars shy, something like that. But this is to confirm, and what we're going to do is let's allow the staff to kind of run with it at this point to get the answers, because we definitely need answers. These are just meters and it's calibration, and there should be backup or readings anyways. But that's on the water. For members of the committee, September 16th to the 20th, International Plowing Match up at the fairgrounds. Host community is West Lincoln. Going to be a big deal. Most of them, in their advertisement, give a economic impact of about $25 million. Average attendance is about 70,000. And, so where I'm coming from is for these good gentlemen that have to do with roads. So you can't have any breaks in that week right there, okay? There, I'm trying to help. Yeah, but, so because we can't be tying a whole bunch of people up with road construction. And so we need to also bring that up with the region as well, IPM. The airport, 262 Mud, they're moving dirt around up there. Are we all squared away on the agreement with them? Sorry.
All good through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so we do have the site plan agreement is all in check. LC securities, all that has been in check. So they're doing a little bit of work. We were setting up the pre-construction meeting where we'll get some schedule and final details. But yeah, everything is in place. Yeah.
Just for committee's reference, that job that they're talking about up at the airport is going to be good for about 20,000 truckloads of fill coming in. 20,000. So they'll be there for a while. And as long as they don't come up mountain, but they're going to beat the bejesus out of Mud Street. So again, it'll have to be rebuilt with that much traffic going down the road. Mud Street. Today, I'm going to ask the director, I was coming up Casablanca, and I noticed that they're doing some, looked like one of those machines that they do the core drilling to see and I'm going, okay, then must be getting ready to do the Casablanca work that the region was going to do. But I had a car behind me, so I ended up turning right or west onto Livingston. And then I had had to go up just about to the end of it, the little stub. And then I saw on the field a marker, same kind of a marker that they've got down below here along Casablanca. And I have asked the director, it was my understanding on that any work was going to be stopping at that little stub, at that dead end, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's like there was a segue.
Yes.
Question mark? Yeah. So yeah, maybe I can just walk you through the different phases of the work. So there was 2 environmental assessments done separately. The first environmental assessment was for the Casablanca reconstruction. So that's Casablanca from the North Service Road down to Main Street. And as part of that environmental assessment, they looked at a section of Livingston from Casablanca westerly to just before the woodlot. There's a regional property there that was incorporated as part of that first phase of the environmental assessment. So that work is being in design, a little bit further along in the design than the other section, which I'll talk about in a minute. The first phase of that construction work is from the North Service Road to the South Service Road. And then the South Service Road east and west for a short leg. That is intended to be the first works that are going to be constructed, and the region's working on that now. I think they're still looking for MTO approvals is the last update that I've got. So we're hearing that it's next spring, or I guess this spring, or sometime in that period. The second phase of that work, or phase 2 and 3 of that work, is from the CN tracks south, as well as the Livingston Avenue work. That design is not as far along. We're still working on the stormwater management solution for that as well. So that it will be occurring, with the next two or 3 years potentially after the first phase is done. The next section is Livingston Avenue from where that dead end occurs to the, is it Oaks Road? Basically to Main Street near Oaks Road. That was done, they're calling it the Livingston Avenue Extension. That was done as a separate environmental assessment just after the Casablanca and Livingston Avenue Extension. And that environmental assessment was approved, so the region is proceeding with the detailed design of that Livingston Extension. And that portion of road, I think we received a draft or the 30% design for that road extension, and so that's kind of where that one lies. I'm not sure where that lies within their capital projects list. I can certainly pull out that information and get that back to you if it's important to you, and just to let you know kind of where that sits within their current budget. Hopefully that helps explain everything.
I can, thank you, Chair. But they're going to be doing that over to the west in this work that we've got, that the region's got planned? I think it's this year, isn't it? No? Spencer, you're going like this.
So the first section of road, so no, we don't expect any work to occur on Livingston Avenue in the next year or so. The second phase of the Casablanca works, I will say, will urbanize or construct the road from Livingston to the just before the woodlot, so where that regional transportation hub or the region's land is there. That will occur in the next 2 to 3 years based on what they're telling us. The section from the dead end or the region's land further to the west, or to where Oaks is more on the long-term horizon. I'm not sure exactly where that lies within their capital list, but that's where I can pull that up. So in short answer, we don't expect any work in the next year, but 2-3 years down the road, we expect the first section of Livingston to be constructed, and then the next section further to the west will occur after that.
Councillor Al?
Through you, Chair, one quick follow-up. Does that mean we've got pickleball courts then? Is that what they're going to do? Are they going to build us pickleball courts out there? I'm being facetious.
I'm glad you weren't looking for an answer.
So when you're being facetious, it needs to be a little bit more clear, because that was, the segue there was really confusing. Councillor DeVoley.
Wow, it's hard to beat that one. I'm going to ask a question and something that Mr. Wortman and I briefly talked about during the budget proceedings. I'll call it that. And maybe I need to give some background before I can actually ask my question. So, we've done these asset management studies. We see we have this huge gap in funding our infrastructure. And of course, AMO and other organizations like that are beating a path to the door of the province and of the federal government, saying, you need to help us come up with funding for this large gap of infrastructure that needs to be kept up to date and so on. And my concern is that our government may or may not just decide to get on board, or may get on board with what I call strings or criteria. And I will use a comparable example in the healthcare field. And so once upon a time, in the healthcare field, they used to fund our hospitals on a global basis. So they would say to us at West Lincoln, when I sat on the board, here's $25 million to run the hospital for the year, right? But eventually, that wasn't enough. And eventually they changed the funding mechanism, and they said, we're going to take a look and see how your costs compare in a lot of different areas. We're going to compare you to other hospitals of the same size. And if your costs are greater than the average of hospitals of your size, you don't get as much funding. If your costs are less, we will continue to give you, and may even give you some more. So what they were really trying to do was force the hospitals who were spending too much, let's say on a gallbladder operation or whatever, and bringing them down to the average, and letting others who were super efficient, I guess, or perhaps, not even spending that, they were giving them more funding. What they called the sort of methodology that they were looking at how hospitals fared with these key performance indicators, how they compared to their peers, right? So where I'm leading to is, is it a wise thing, perhaps for our Public Works Department and for this committee, to ask our staff to look at some key performance indicators for our municipality, comparing us to other municipalities of comparable sizes, so that we know, where we stand in all of this? Are we kind of on the good side, on the bad side, on some? Where are we in all of this? To be prepared for, how do we grapple with this very big problem we have in front of us? And when we go knocking on the doors of the province and the feds, we need to know how our costs compare, right? And so I guess ultimately my question is there any sort of work that or reports that our staff can put together to kind of summarize some of this, so we might have an indication of where we stand?
Brandon?
Yeah, thank you through Mr. Chair. I'm going to actually hand it off to Marvin. Marvin is our infrastructure engineering manager, and he's been responsible for supporting the asset management plan development for the last 2 years at least, and I think he can talk to you a little bit about the existing levels of service versus the proposed levels of service that we'll be developing over the next few months, that will be coming to Council and Public Works Committee to discuss a little bit further.
Marvin?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and those are great questions. And to some degree, I think the province has thought about the same thing. So in the new asset management regulations, or newer, I guess, not new, they do have specific key performance indicators that every municipality must report on. Now, some of them are very general and some of them are a little vague, but everybody must do these certain ones. So every municipality that obviously has to do the asset management plan has to report on these key performance indicators. Now, in terms of setting the levels of service, there's no requirement on necessarily where you must be. The idea is, I guess, an agreement and understanding at the municipal level where you want to be. I think the important thing there is once we set those, we really should be striving to get there. And that's where the key performance indicator will come in to say, well, we're setting a target of X, and then every year we must report on, hey, how are we doing on achieving that? And it might be we're going to achieve that over the next 10 years. For example, we talked about cast iron water main. So how are we doing? Well, we're on track, or we're behind schedule, or ahead of schedule. So now, in addition to that, we can set our own targets, and then along with that, we can have our own kind of checks as we go. So there's a little bit of both of those, like the mandated key performance indicators are in there, and we've added a few more. So when we bring that plan in front of yourself and then this committee and then eventually council, that'll all be kind of described, and then we can kind of chat about how that looks. But just to kind of set the stage, we're probably about halfway through right now our plan that will come before council, well, committee first and then council, but we have to do that by June, and that will be setting our proposed levels of service. And then after that, we'll be, budgeting according to those levels of service and then reporting annually after that. So long-winded answer, but hopefully that, yeah.
Councillor DeVoley?
Thank you. It was a long question, too, a long lead-in, so you are absolutely allowed to have a long answer to that. And so I guess my follow-up question, or my concern that I put out there, is that, we're mandated to do these asset management studies, and we did them. And of course, we identified some very large gaps in funding here, which we have started on the very first step with this budget to start to rectify that, but we have a very long path ahead of us. There was an excellent report that came to this committee on, I forget which one, was it the firm, is it DFI? They did the water and study, and then they looked at the reserves that we have for it and so on. Yes, and it was just excellent. I thought what it really was doing was taking the information in our asset management study and then looking at what the plan is to what we need to replace going forward, and then looking at our reserves and saying, this is where you're short. And I'm really interested in absolutely every single department, and Public Works is such a big department with so much of our infrastructure assets, in having that done in a lot of other areas besides the one that we did. And that report was really, really very succinct. Mike, and the reason that I would like to see, once we decide on service levels, I'd like to see it extended then to, what do we actually need specifically in those reserves year by year in order to get us there. Our finance director has given us a report as part of the budget that's an overview, kind of up in the helicopters looking down overall for our municipality, but we really need to apply this in detail to every single department. And of course, in the case of Public Works, you have many divisions within this department too. So we really need to apply it in quite a lot of detail. Now, why is that important? Because at the end of the day, we don't have a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So we're going to have, as a council and as staff, we're going to count on you with some recommendations, and we're going to have to make some hard decisions all the time. And we're going to have to start prioritizing, because we can't do everything, right? There's no pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. There's no rainbow, quite honestly. And so we really need to kind of get these very detailed reports by area.
Councillor DeVoe, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have to excuse myself. This is an important conversation, and I hope you'll continue it. But Councillor Howe has graciously offered to take over for me. Thank you, everybody, and I apologize. I have to go. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. Have a good night.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hoping will be the follow-up work, right? And I realize, that's either going to take some consultants working with us, or it's going to take a lot of involvement by our senior staff that are here today and by our finance staff to kind of lay out these forecasts. But I think it's a really important area. I think it's what a council should work on all the time in terms of long-term strategy and so on. And, we've identified the gap. Now we need to know where the most pressing parts of the gap are, where the biggest parts are, where the most critical parts are, because we need to start prioritizing and making some decisions, not just in terms of how much we have to raise the levy by to fund it by, but also which projects we need to do first, right? I'm not sure what my question is, other than to kind of lay out my concern, I guess, as a Public Works Committee member and as a councillor, as to how do our staff how do you see putting that information together and helping us in this regard?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Another great question, and I don't know if I have the answer to that, but so the asset management plan will present our backlog, right? So here's where we want to be, here's where we are, the difference is the backlog. And then there will be a financial piece to the asset management plan, or here are some high-level options on how to get there. And they obviously include easy things like, not easy, but say, raising taxes, rates, that sort of thing. Obviously, there's hopefully opportunity for funding, federal, provincial levels. But there's also will be a component, I think that will come more from the staff level of maybe even thinking outside of the box and some options on, I guess, extending service life at a cheaper level. So, and what I mean by that, I'll give an example. So the asset management plan will probably identify, we have so many meters of sewer mains. Their cost to replace a sewer main is X, so there's a calculation, and so here's how much money we need, and here's how much we're spending. There are options to replacement. You can do sewer lining, for example, at a fraction of the cost. So that's, I think, where staff will come in to say, yes, we understand the backlog is here, but here are some ways to reduce that backlog. We'll extend the service life at a cheaper level. So I think that's very important. Another example, if I can share, is for example, say water main crossings of the QEW and the railway. In the asset management plan, we'll identify we have so many crossings and they'll have to be replaced, and it's very expensive to do those. At the staff level, we'll be looking at, do we need them all? So can we actually, or is there some redundancy that we can actually, at end of life, can we just decommission them and there's no impact? So there are some of those things that we'll be looking at, but you do raise some good points. There will have to be a financial follow-up to how do we get from A to B, but I think it'll be kind of a collaborative approach, yeah.
Thank you. So I guess as a follow-up, as a council, we definitely need those ideas from staff to come forward as to how we address the problem, because, the only tool in the toolbox that we the only tool that we hope we don't have to utilize, but obviously is always the default, is to raise taxes, right? But you're right, there are other ways to work around this gap, and I'm hearing some of your ideas, which make me feel a wee bit better, for sure. So I guess my question is, how do we pull that together? And is it worth giving some thought to and just coming back with a report to committee to say, okay, this is what we see in the workload in the next year to 2 years. This is what we're going to do first, then we're going to do this, then we're going to eventually, and finish this project off with a financial report on it, or I guess what I'm really looking for is sort of a long-term plan as to how we start to lay out the details and talk about our priorities.
So through you, Mr. Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, Marvin, but some of these questions are going to be answered through the next phase of the study. Is that correct? Like we're going to be developing, as I understand it, and we've done the core assets, our water, wastewater, roads. We've then moved on to our non-core assets, so our facilities, our equipment. I may be mixing this up, but our IT equipment, our facilities, that kind of thing. That was looking at our existing condition, how we do things now. Here's how much money we currently invest. The next phase we'll look at, okay, now we know what we do now. What do we want to set for our new levels of service going forward? And part of that is going to be a discussion with the committee and council about here's some options for how we can try to tackle this backlog and our replacement needs over the next 50 years, whether that's an infrastructure levy or over a certain period of time. So I think that's all going to be fleshed out. Some of that's going to be fleshed out through the next phase of the study, which we fully intend to bring our consultant and our project team to come in and have that conversation, get a little bit more into the weeds to explain kind of, here's what we're coming up with, here's the decisions that we need to make going forward. And then from there, obviously, it's going to be a living document going forward, and we're going to be constantly testing our assumptions as we move through the asset management strategy. Hopefully I cover that. Marvin, I don't know if I missed anything if you want to add.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, that was perfect. I do foresee, to your point, some financial follow-up. Like to actually, and I think that'll fall on Tony and his team to maybe help us with that. But to actually get into the details on how do we get there. There again with collaboration with staff on some different ideas. But yeah, and then to add, I'd foresee moving forward the budgets that come before you will be tied very tightly to those plans. So if the level of service says we need so many millions of dollars for water main per year, that would be reflective in the capital budget. And the idea is to try to get there over a certain period of time, whether it's a 10-year or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, if I can. So we are actually starting down that road in our capital budgets now in terms of our 10-year plan. The asset management plan is currently saying here's to fill our backlog, you should be at this amount over the next 10 years. So what we've started doing is creating a program budget, which essentially lays out over the next 10 years. The asset management plan says this. Here's how we propose getting there over the next 10 years. So maybe we don't have specific projects 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, but we're at least earmarking here's what the asset management says where we should be, and then the finance department is taking that and trying to crunch that through the meat grinder to say, okay, how can we fund that work and how can we work within that? So I think it's kind of an evolving process that's going to, over time, we're continue to work on this and make improvements on it. Hopefully that helps.
It does, thank you. And it's just really important. I mean, when the province said do this asset management study, they didn't just mean do it and park it in a library someplace. They meant use that information to figure out your priorities, what you're going to do when, how you're going to fund it, and so on. So I'm so happy to hear sort of that you also kind of share this vision and have it have it laid out in some steps on your list of things to do. And so an aside, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, but this is important that every single department do this. We're talking about Public Works. Do we know if the other departments are looking at it the same way?
Yeah, so this is asset-based, so it's not, like, although Public Works helped with the corporate program, there's been stakeholders that are involved from community services, fire department, I'm going to miss some, planning, whoever owns assets. Those assets were the non-core and the core assets, and we've developed that program not so much based on what Public Works does, but what assets we have in the town. And then the stakeholders, the departments who are involved in maintaining those assets are at the table helping us make the decisions of how we fund this going forward and how we move forward on those asset replacements. So a good example maybe is our building community services. As part of this project and others, they've done a building condition assessment. So all their buildings have been identified in terms of age and what's in them and what age those equipment that's in them. And they've developed a plan for those facilities to identify, we have an HVAC unit that is 15 years old that needs to be replaced in the next 5 years, and they've started building that into their capital program as well. So I think it's really the direction from the province, this whole program has helped us kind of all get together and realize that, hey, we have to do this more, dot our I's, cross our T's, develop these plans, and it's forcing us to sit down and make sure that we're, not that we weren't doing it right before, but we're making sure that we're doing it more, I don't know what the word is, but going forward, that we're ensuring that we're analytical and we're making the right decisions. So.
Excellent. Members of the committee, anything under other business that you want to bring up? Next meeting, Wednesday, February 26, 6:30 p.m. is scheduled for. Subject to change, as always, but that's all right. And thank you, everyone. And I mean it. Thank you. And meeting is adjourned.